Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm Brett Twitty, Director of Admissions for the Executive Formats of the Darden MBA, and you are listening to a new episode. So in this episode, we wrap up our look at the start of school with an interview with Jim Detert. Jim is a leadership professor here at Darden, but he's also the new Associate Dean for the Executive MBA Program. And I sat down with him to talk with him a little bit more about his background, what led him to Darden, what he enjoys about teaching executive format students, why he decided to take the role as Associate Dean, and his goals for both LR1, our first leadership residency, as well as the program generally. It's a pretty far-ranging conversation. We get into a lot of things. As you might guess, Jim has a real passion for leadership, and it's exciting to hear his thoughts on the role the program can play in helping students grow and develop as leaders. So this is a little bit longer than our usual podcast interviews, but I think you'll enjoy the content and hearing from Jim. So without further ado, my interview with Jim Detert. So Jim, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this, Brett.
All right, so for our listeners at home, maybe share a little bit more about your background.
Sure. I grew up in Wisconsin, spent the first 22 years of my life there, with a little side stint or two in Japan. I am really a combination, prior to coming to Darden 2 years ago, a combination of sort of the Big Ten and Ivy League. I did my undergrad at Wisconsin and MBA in Minnesota, where I lived for 5 years, and then have been in the East Coast since then. I did another master's and PhD at Harvard, was there 4 years, and then I moved back to the Big Ten. My first faculty role was at Penn State. After 4 years there, I spent the next 9 at Cornell, and decided 2 years ago it was time to get back to a Power 5 conference and see some more of my beloved sports.
So it was obviously sports, and UVA is a great place. What brought you to UVA specifically? What brought you to Darden?
So in the realm of business schools, and as I said, I've been around a few now, there really is a range of focus on students and the educational mission of the school and the research mission of the school. And obviously those are interrelated. But in reality, there is a different amount of attention or focus put on those two elements of the mission. And Darden really, among all elite business schools in the world, is unique in its focus on students and its concern about curriculum and pedagogy and everything that goes into creating a transformational learning environment. And so, I came here by choice because I was attracted to that element of Darden.
And you're a leadership faculty member, right? You teach LO?
I teach courses at the intersection of leadership and ethics, generally speaking. In the ExecMBA program, I've been teaching the core LO class. In the residential program, I designed a course called Defining Moments. That's a course that is based on the actual defining moment experiences of Darden alums. The cases were all written for that class. They very quickly put students in the role of the protagonist who faces a really defining moment around a challenge to his or her values or the organization's values, a crisis moment, and ask the students, what would you do and how would you do it effectively?
So in the executive formats, you have students with a range of leadership experiences, right? You have some students who are earlier in their career, maybe 5-6 years of work experience. You have other people who may be 30-plus years into their career. How do you think about teaching something like leadership to a group of people with that broad range?
Well, a couple thoughts about that. First, particularly in the Darden pedagogical mode, the case method mode, I think we are all teachers of each other. So those who have more leadership experience, I think, can share that experience, share the insights they've gleaned with those who have less experience. And it's also the case that not all years of experience necessarily translate equally to leadership knowledge. Sometimes it's the more senior members in the class who have the most sort of anecdotal experience or wisdom, but not necessarily any more knowledge about what we actually know through leadership science as sort of patterns and relationships. And so certainly we might think about sort of the transmission that occurs among students from more seasoned to less seasoned students. But I think that can be a false dichotomy. Really, everybody is a student of leadership for their entire life. It can often be, it can require more unwinding of beliefs not supported by science for those who are further along in their career.
One of the things that's interesting to me is sort of the journey and progression our students are on when they come to the program, right? They're typically at a certain point in the organization and they want more responsibility, more scope, more leadership responsibility. And so it seems, something like the CASE method and focus on leadership in the Executive MBA program offers an interesting frame for those students to grow and develop as leaders. You have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think, beyond sort of what attracted me to leave Cornell and come to Darden at the school level, there's also the question, why is my passion really in the Executive MBA domain? And the answer to that really speaks to your question. I think, often at conferences in my area, leadership or organizational behavior, colleagues everywhere will talk about the challenges of just convincing up front a 25, 26, 27-year-old that leadership or organizational behavior are even worth their time. They are often, more convinced that what they need is more finance, more accounting, more econ. And, you can tell them as many stories as you want about alums saying, it's leadership at OB I should have paid attention to, but many 25-year-olds, 27-year-olds are just not there. In the Executive MBA space, almost everybody's far enough along in their career to know that it's the emotional, social, cultural intelligences, it's the leadership capabilities, what we sometimes talk about as the soft skills, that are actually hardest to master. And so in the Executive MBA domain, you don't waste any time trying to get to make the case for leadership and organizational behavior. The hunger is there. You can immediately dive in and help people. We also know from research that a large part of leadership is doing, it's practice. And so when you're dealing with people who aren't working, you're inevitably trying to give them knowledge and a set of practice experiences that you hope someday will be helpful. In the Executive MBA realm where people are working, you can work on things that hopefully, as soon as the following Monday, they can take back to their environment and begin to, work on with their colleagues, their bosses, their subordinates. And so the chance to have direct application is really exciting. It's a huge chance for growth. And frankly, it really makes faculty have to stay on their toes and up their game because, rightly so, Executive MBA students have no problem telling faculty that sounds good in theory but isn't true in practice.
So it's clear you have a great passion for working with these students. What prompted you to take on more of a leadership role?
Well, I think the thing specific to where we're at right now really excited me. I love the new SANS facility in D.C. I think the place we are in the program is truly an inflection point of growth and a chance to take what we're doing to a greater number of people and to greater heights, not just the facility, which offers us really a chance to have the best of both worlds, to be in a great global city, our nation's capital, but also on the grounds of a great university and a great college town. I think that's a really exciting place to be. I also think as a program, we're in a really exciting place. So we're not new. We're not so new that we are going to be sort of figuring it out as we go, which can be problematic. But we're also not so old that we're stuck in our ways and unwilling to innovate. I think this program's at a really exciting place, and that attracted me. I also think if you study leadership like I've been doing for my whole career, you know that it's pretty easy to criticize leadership. It's pretty easy to point out all the ways in which people don't lead according to best practice. I figured it was time to either, take a stab at it myself and be willing to be subject to the same criticism and growth, or I probably have to at minimum, drop my level of criticism of other leaders.
So as you think about, you mentioned that this is a exciting time for the school, exciting time for the program. What do you hope to accomplish? It doesn't necessarily have to be over long term, but near term. What are you have any goals for the program? Things that you have in mind that you hope to achieve?
Well, if you start with the Darden mission, which is to improve the world by developing and inspiring responsible leaders, and by advancing knowledge, I think that mission obviously applies to the executive degree space. We should be striving to provide incredible transformational leadership development for our students. So if you say, well, what are my goals? That's first and foremost to provide programming that demonstrably transforms the students who go through the program. I think that includes doing things that lead to students being delighted over time with the personal and career outcomes they associate with their participation in the program. And there, I choose the words over time intentionally. I think any great growth experience in life is not always pleasant in the moment. I think people who come through this program will have a tremendous number of enjoyable, fun times, but there are also struggles involved with anything that's really worth achieving. And so I think what really matters is whether over the course of people's career they look back and say, we did something special for them. I also would like to see us have our alums known for their principled world-improving leadership. I mean, that's ultimately the test of whether we're fulfilling our mission, is not how any student feels during their time in the program, but what they ultimately go out and do. I would like to see us, I think if we do all those things right, I think external perceptions will concur that we're a global top 10 program. I think if we're truly transforming students, truly creating great leadership outcomes for the world, others will recognize that. They will recognize that regularly and systematically. And then finally, something that's important for me is that the incredible people like you who are part of the program think of Darden and the MBA program specifically as a best place to work. I think there's no reason why these things shouldn't all be happening. We should have delighted faculty and staff, delighted students, and external observers, including our alums who are delighted. And that's obviously a tall order, but if you're an elite program like we are, I think that's what we have to be aiming for.
So we've asked a lot of students who come on the podcast about learning in the case method and feel that, at least in the executive MBA space, that it's a meaningful differentiator. You talk about students who want to grow as leaders. What better way to grow as a leader than to be put in the position of a senior leader with a decision to make? Yeah. How do you think about teaching in the case method? I mean, what's your approach? Obviously, probably a little bit more difficult than just giving a lecture.
I think it's more difficult in the sense that as a faculty member using the case method, you have to be comfortable with the idea of not completely controlling the direction of the conversation or the outcome. If you ask people and they're honest with you, what's scary about teaching by the case method, it's precisely that. Teaching in a monologue lecture fashion allows you to control exactly where the thing starts and goes and ends. In the case method, you have to be comfortable with the idea that, the wisdom or the pushback or the conflict or tension in the room takes you to places you're not ready for. I would argue that's exactly why the case method is an incredibly valuable pedagogy. It involves not just students' sort of cool cognitive, part of mind, but also the emotional, intense, hot part of mind. And that, I think, is ultimately what real learning involves. Certainly for me, relative to, let's say, other newer faculty to Darden, there's not really any there's no transition to the case method for me. My PhD was a joint program with Harvard Business School. So you can go back, 20 years, and I, when students would ask faculty, why are we case driven? The answer was always because anybody can learn accounting principles or financial formulas only a special few can learn to be smart financial or accounting decision makers. And I think the fundamental thing we're trying to do with the case method is help people become general managers, to become leaders, people who can see the enterprise perspective and make decisions. Certainly in the 20 years since that moment, the explosion of computing power and capability only further makes that distinction relevant. The value to somebody for the facts they know is dwindling quickly. The value that is accumulating is to those who actually know how to use information skillfully to make good decisions. And I think the case method is beautifully suited for that.
I had this conversation with some of our students about how think about what AI is going to take over. It's hard for it to take over things like discretion, judgment, sort of relational, interpersonal skills, things that are obviously very much a part of leadership growth and development, and what students get a lot of practice with at Darden. I was having a conversation with a faculty member who stressed just how central communication is to what you do in the classroom here. The fact that you constantly are having to express not just what you think, but why you think the way that you think, and sell that idea to your classmates who all have their own ideas and may disagree with you and push back on it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, what I would say to somebody, who is still considering where to go to school, what program to enroll in, to strongly consider the fact that whatever price point you're looking at, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. That's far too much money to pay to essentially learn what is increasingly a commodity. The jobs of the future are not going to hire you for how much you've memorized. They're going to hire you because you can formulate and convince others that your ideas make the most sense, because you can handle interpersonally difficult conversations or crises more skillfully than others. What I would like to see us focus on, even more than we do going forward, are exactly those things that technology will not be able to replace.
So we're about to start school. We are just a couple weeks away from the start of orientation in the first leadership residency, LR1, as it's known in our program. As a leadership faculty member and the leader of this program, I imagine you have a particularly strong interest in LR1 and what students do during that week. I know much will be revealed, and obviously we posted the reading for our incoming students on the admitted student website. But any thoughts you want to share for the students as they think about getting ready for that week?
Yeah, well, just to follow on what we were talking about earlier, the theme for LR1 is enterprise leadership, and what that means in simplest terms is putting on the hat of the general manager. So rather than doing what too many organizations do, but also what we do too often in business school, rather than focusing on single functional areas or approaches to a problem, what we're saying is that really running an organization is about taking the perspective on a problem from the accounting and financial perspective, but also from the leadership and communication perspective, and also the broader cultural or macro environmental perspective. And so, LR1 is titled Enterprise Leadership, and the theme of the course is really how do you put on the hat of the general manager. And so, that's the topic of the course. What excites me about the week we've put together, and students won't just see me in the role of associate dean in the first week, but I also am the faculty lead for LR1. So, what I'm excited about also are the specific components. So in the morning, students will have a chance to really experience for the first time the case method. They'll do a couple cases every day, and they will be exposed to the amazing faculty roster here at Darden. There'll be some co-taught classes, some individually taught classes. Almost all of the faculty students will be exposed to during the first week have a major role throughout the rest of the program. You also have a chance to meet your incredible classmates. We've taken prior feedback and really been conscious about the ways we'll mix you up over the course of the week. with the intent of helping you begin to form bonds with as many of your classmates as possible. We also have developed 2 really exciting, challenging team learning experiences. Personally, for me, that's the most exciting. I think, having the competitive juices flow a little bit as you compete in teams against other teams, having a chance to sort of formulate and sell your solutions to a live audience. For me, that's really the most exciting part of the week is the live case competition that will culminate with finalists having a chance to present their solutions to the actual Darden Enterprise team. And I think students will have a great time doing that.
So we've talked with Barbara Millar a little bit about her advice for students who are starting here at Darden, talked with Callie Thompson as well about some tips and suggestions she had. You've worked with Darden students now for executive students for a couple of years, and obviously MBA students for much longer than that. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for students as they embark on this next step in their MBA journey?
Yeah, I guess just a few thoughts, and I know advice is cheap, so
we've had a lot of it coming the students' way. Over
so
the past
maybe
weeks.
I won't take up too much more air, but I guess I would just a couple quick thoughts. One, I think everybody knows this, but remember that it's a serious commitment. Be sure you're ready. Be sure you've carved out the time, the energy, etc. for something that's going to be a marathon and not a sprint. I think sometimes people come out of the gate, super pumped and energetic, but are pretty tired a few months in, and so it's a 21-month commitment. So be prepared for that. Build your support structure around that. Part of the support structure that perhaps we don't talk about enough is the importance of the student network. Your classmates will just be incredibly valuable to you during and after the program, not only in terms of being content experts and things you know less about, but also they're the group that's going through this with you. They're the group you'll laugh with. They're the group maybe once in a while you'll cry with. Make it your mission early in the program to form those bonds so that you never feel like you're going it alone. I guess another piece of advice I would offer is always reach out proactively and work really hard to stay on top of things. Unlike residential programs where you have 4 or 5 or 6 week holiday break, where you have a summer off, the EMBA program doesn't have long breaks like that at any point. You have a week or 2 max, quarter after quarter, including in the summer. And what that means is that trouble or incompletes or areas you fall behind in one quarter tend to compound, because there really aren't long breaks where you can sort of catch back up. So I think working as hard as possible to stay on top of things and not make the assumption that you'll catch up later, because that's not very likely, frankly. And then I think I would end by saying, remember that the program team is totally committed to you. I've only been in this role a couple of months, and I have been absolutely amazed. In fact, one of the primary reasons I was willing to take on this role is that even in teaching in the program, it was clear to me how incredible this program team is. It's the most devoted, caring, competent group of people I've worked with in any program at any school. And so, while the inevitable struggles and hiccups and challenges will come your way, I can assure you that there is no program team anywhere that will care more about or be more committed to your well-being.
I would say so as well. It's amazing the work that they do and how much care they take in terms of supporting the students. Anything that can be done to make the students' academic lives easier, right?
That's right.
So I think there's always an acknowledgement that the students in the program are juggling so much, and I've been so impressed by the fact that the program team wants to make this the most seamless aspect of the student's life. The thing that struck me about your comments is connect with your classmates. I've been around for a lot of the Roslyn class visits and a lot of the weekends up there with both our class of 2018 and 2019. And you will always see groups of students off in learning team rooms, someone at a whiteboard explaining to their classmates. And it reminds me at that time that we have subject matter experts on finance, accounting, econ, decision analysis, all these things sitting in the midst of all the students.
Yeah, it's so true. And what I would add to that is when I come up to Roslyn, I'm always amazed as I watch the students, roll in, that hour or so up to the kickoff of class time. I'm always amazed by the number of high fives and hugs and smiles and banter that goes on. I mean, there is a true degree of love and respect among the students. I mean, and I'm not talking students, just 2 weeks in. I'm talking students, 3/4 of the way through the program who genuinely like each other, who genuinely like seeing each other after a few weeks away. And that's a pretty special thing.
Yeah, I'm always struck that students refer to it as the Darden family, right? And that's very much the culture of the place. And your point about sort of relying on your support network is well taken. I think the earlier, if students struggling, having a hard time, the earlier you can reach out. You can say, hey, I need help. Barbara made a point around this that I thought was really good. And so much of where I think successful people have a hard time, when you come back to school, you're going to be challenged in a different kind of way than you're challenged at work. So much of the hard time that students oftentimes encounter is about asking for help. That's right. And just remembering that, if you have a challenge of any type, the likelihood is pretty high that multiple others have had it. I know from the kind of research I do that people will often tell me, oh, I have a certain story to tell you, but it's hard for me to tell you because you'll be amazed. You'll have never heard this before. And, often I have to sit there and, quietly smile because I've actually heard the similar story many, many times. I think we all tend to think that our particular struggles or challenges are unique to us, but in fact, if you're experiencing it, it's highly likely somebody else in the class is going through it anyway. So, never suffer in silence, I guess, would be my primary advice as you come in. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It sounds like you have an exciting lineup in store for the students as they get started with LR1. Yeah, I'm delighted. I wish it was August 11th. Tomorrow. I know. I think we all are looking forward to that date when they all come through the front doors there in Saunders Hall and get started. So thank you again, and exciting couple weeks ahead. Yeah. Thank you, Brett. And that was my interview with Jim Detert, Associate Dean for the Executive MBA Program. Of course, if you have comments, suggestions, requests, we're always interested in your ideas. Email us at exec, that's EXECMBA @darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, thanks for listening.